We're focused on due process this video, which have to do with the rights that people are entitled to when you are accused of or being investigated for a crime. The due process rights in the Constitution primarily come from the 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendments. That's where they're located. We've covered those early on during the first unit of the class and the second unit of the class. But let's look at some Supreme Court cases that illustrate this. First of all, Gideon v. Wainwright. In Gideon v. Wainwright, a man named Gideon was put on trial in Florida. He was not given an attorney because it was a state case and not a federal case. And at that time, the Sixth Amendment had been interpreted by the state of Florida as meaning that you have a right to a lawyer in federal cases, but it wasn't viewed as being required to apply to state cases. Gideon represented himself. He lost. He took the case then to the Supreme Court, claiming that he had a Sixth Amendment right to an attorney. And in that case, the Supreme Court ruled that yes, even in state cases, all defendants have the right to an attorney paid for by the government. So even if you don't have enough money, you have a right to an attorney, whether it's a state or a federal case. Very important case. The second case I'm going to talk about is focused on what's called the exclusionary rule, and that's Mapp v. Ohio. In this case, police officers came to the house of a woman in the middle of the night. They demanded to be able to enter. They were looking for evidence, something that they said her son had. She asked for a warrant. They waved a piece of paper up at her and then ran right into her house. She grabbed the piece of paper, stuck it in her bra to save it for later, and later discovered that it was not, in fact, a warrant. It was just a random piece of paper. She filed a lawsuit, and her lawyer argued, based on the Fourth Amendment, that her rights had been violated. Remember, the Fourth Amendment protects against unreasonable search and seizure. And that creates what's called the exclusionary rule. It means that if police get evidence, so here you have an image of a gun, which could be a murder weapon, even if the police find evidence that is real evidence that proves that someone is guilty of a crime, if they got that evidence illegally, if they did it without having a warrant, without having probable cause, then the police can't use that evidence in a court of law. It cannot be used against the person because it wasn't gathered legally. It's designed to keep police from taking shortcuts that violate the due process rights in the Constitution. Third and finally, I'll talk about Miranda v. Arizona. In the Miranda v. Arizona case, a man named Ernesto Miranda had his conviction, a rape conviction, overturned or thrown out by the Supreme Court because the authorities never informed him of his right to remain silent or his right to have an attorney. This is a big issue. This is a big issue because in this case, the police forced him into a confession that he would not otherwise have made. Because he was forced into a confession and had never been told that he had a right to remain silent, the Supreme Court threw out the confession, and therefore they didn't have enough evidence to convict him without that confession. So when you watch any of these shows and you hear you have the right to remain silent, anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law, you have a right to an attorney, all of that is it's called your Miranda rights, and that's named after the Supreme Court case Miranda v. Arizona, where the Supreme Court ruled that defendants have to be informed of their rights at the time that they are arrested. We'll stop there. If you have questions about these cases as you're working on your projects, please let me know, and I'll be happy to talk with you more about it in class. Thank you.